A crocheter wrote, I noticed that you don't participate in church. You don't have any religious things on your channel as far as bookmarks for crosses and etc. And is there a reason why you are not religious? And so I'm going to try to do this in one take and be as blunt as I can, but be as polite as I can too. So I think somebody's religion is really not anybody else's business. That's number one. But I grew up and my parents were not involved in religion, but my parents sent me to Sunday school to get me out of the house when I was really, really young. So I might have been 4, might have been 5. So a neighbor would grab my sister and I and haul us to church. So it gave my parents time at home to do whatever they need to do. So we would be dropped off after church. So we would go to Sunday school. We'd have to sit in the, always called it big church. So we had Sunday school and then big church. And so we would be taken home after big church. And so I literally invited my mother to come to Mother's Day as the church was celebrating it. And my mom came in. And my mom is really community oriented and she loved the element of church. She likes the idea of people coming together. She likes the fellowship. She loves helping others. And so for my mom, it was a perfect fit for her to kind of go into that kind of environment. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom for most of my really young years until I hit high school, and then my mom went back to work. And so it gave my mom a sense of friendships and more by going to church. And in that, she would eventually drag my dad in. So it was basically when I was really young with my sister and then eventually my brother, we would eventually start going to church together. So things happen. We move to a different place. And so have to find a different church. So we started off with the Nazarene and then we went to a United church where we were living. So it was either Catholic or United from what I remember. And so we went to the United church for whatever reason. My grandparents went to the Catholic church. I think my mother, because of a divorce, was ostracized from the Catholic church because of a divorce. So my mom couldn't step foot into the Catholic church because of it, because a divorce and a remarry. Maybe life has changed, but I don't know if that's changed now. So anyway, so we ended up in the United Church, and my parents started getting involved with the kids programming in that church of, my mom starting to teach Sunday school. It gave my mom something to do because she was a stay-at-home mom. It gave my mom some goals. And on Wednesdays at home, we would have family night, and my mom would write hymns on cue cards, like on card construction paper, and together we would sing songs together, and we would share how our week was going. I love that part of it. That's the only thing that came out of that whole situation that I feel really passionate about. I can still hear the family singing the hymns at home. But when it came to going back into the church environment, it was completely different. So my parents ended up moving again, and we ended up going to a Pentecostal church. And in the Pentecostal church, it was a massive church. It wasn't a mega church like there is in the US, but it was a big church. I think it was like 300, 400 people in the congregation versus, I think, under 100 from what we came from. So my mom took the Sunday school idea from the other church and applied it to the new church. And my parents started getting involved in religion in a more strategic way. So both my parents started getting involved really heavily in the kids programming. My dad was in charge of the boys' side. My mother was in charge of the girls' side. And it was actually pretty decent. We would go to church not only Sunday school and big church, but we would attend the children's programming during the week. And my parents ended up running into a situation because they were starting to get so involved in the church. They started getting involved in the workings of the church. And it turns out that the church, of the people that are in charge, and I don't know if this is true everywhere, but in this particular church, there was like some dominating families that pretty much control the church. So you have the pastors and everybody up in that area, the elders and is that what they call it? And they basically, and then there's the dominant families that really are controlling the church. And so my parents end up running into an issue with the controlling parents of the church, or the controlling families of the church, because they had a child in their programming that was really being difficult to manage. And so basically, my kid's Christian, the kid would never act that way, and the kid was a holy terror, honestly. So I didn't blame them for that, but what it did is it put my parents on the outside of a circle. And in this particular church, the pastors were needing more money. Put more money in the offering. We need more money for this and that. But because my parents were involved in the behind the scenes there, they realized that the pastor was actually quoting to getting more money on stuff that was actually donated to the church and not stuff that they required. So they were in the situation where they were, like, you felt bad as a congregation member that you're not applying enough, but what the pastor was asking for was actually already paid for. So my parents were really starting to question the issues with the church with this particular one. Probably doesn't happen in every church, but in this particular case, it just got to the point where my parents could not be able to manage, because they felt that the leadership of the church, as well as the dominating families, were being very deceptive for everybody else that was in the church. My mom would sing in the choir, and one Sunday, I kid you not, my mom came down off the choir. So the choir gets excused, and then you sit for the remaining of the service as a family. And my mom came down off the stage, and she was tears coming down the aisle, because we would sit near the back because we were kids and we were noisy. So, and my mom just said, out. And basically, my mom bawled her eyes out leaving this church. And we never ever went back to that church ever. And we were scheduled to move again anyway. But my parents were so devastated by what they thought was authentic for religion, and in actual fact ended up being a deceptive and a decoy for what was going on. So they did not let that deter them. And so when we moved to another Pentecostal church. And my dad actually got involved with the kids programming again, and ran exactly into the same problem within 6 months. And after that, both my parents left the church. And so that was it. And so I was a high school student then, and it freed up my Sundays. One of the issues that I had as a child is that in Sunday school, they would assign us a lot of homework. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a shit student as it is. I'm not doing my own homework for real school. And I'm being assigned all of this homework from the Sunday school. And I was really resentful over that, because I'm like, you know, you've got like already 5 days of a teacher hounding you to be able to memorize and stuff. And then you got a Sunday school teacher that is insisting you do the same thing. And so you don't ever really get a break from the pressure of that. So my parents ended up moving us out of church completely. And unfortunately for me, the family ruptured. And I don't think it's a result of leaving the church. I think is what it is. And for the first time, my parents actually had money to be able to do vacations, because all of the extra money that they had was being poured into the church, where they realized it was being deceptive in collecting money. So my parents started going on trips together. They would leave the kids behind, which is fine because we were old enough. But it really kind of gave a perspective. But in my teenage years, because I moved out when I was 18, because I wanted to, because I was self-sufficient, because my parents taught me to be an adult really young in life, is that by the time I left 18, that was it. And it was game over. So my mom ended up returning back to church, and then she got herself involved with a church that was like literally taking a lot of money from her. Like I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars from this woman. And I was like, oh my God. And my mom says, you know, they need the money more than I do. I'm like, you are living, look at the way you're living. You're giving all your money away to these people that are being able to eat out almost every day, and are living a lifestyle that you are not even capable of almost supporting yourself. So it became a really serious to do. And the religion of my mom staying within the religion ends up being a really pivotal point for my parents to finish. And so that was kind of it for that. Now, while I was a kid, the pastors would talk about homosexuality in a really weird way, in the sense that it's wrong. And so I did not know what was wrong with me. So I did not know that all of those conversations and the preaching thing, like, because the guy would go on this tangent for like weeks about this, about homosexuality for whatever reason. And because I don't know that I don't know that he's speaking to me or about people like me. And I don't clue that in my teenage years before I left the church. And once I became old enough to comprehend of all the lessons that I had, one of the things in the house was their Adam and Steve. And so I was terrified to come out to my parents to say that I am not the same as you. And so it would take me until I was about 26 years of age before I was able to confront my homosexuality and to be able to say that I was. But it took me that long to be able to have the courage to be able to function to do that. So life goes on. I end up in a ruined divorce, like in a ruined marriage because of myself. And so I try to go find myself. And my partner before Daniel was Jehovah's Witness. Well, he was a former Jehovah's Witness. And so he maintained the idea of no Christmas, no birthdays, no celebrations other than anniversary. And so I thought, okay, that's fine. So it did not exist when I was with this particular person. And so I learned in my years, because I was single for so long, as well as then getting in a relationship, that I did not observe birthdays or Christmas or anything like that to be as an important thing in my life. So when I met Daniel, Daniel enjoys Christmas. Daniel doesn't participate in any organized religion at all. And I wasn't already anyway, so that was fine. So we decided that we're going to start a Christmas tradition in the first year that we got together. And I was already teaching online in the first 2 years of the first year of YouTube. But when it came to Christmas, it was the second year. And I had the most nastiest email from somebody claiming to be religious that we had no right to put up a Christmas tree, no right to decorate, that we were dirty and homosexuals, and that you are not observing Christmas the proper way, that you need to take down your decorations. And I was so shaken by that. It's like, and I'm thinking, why am I decorating the house? Like, why am I putting stuff up? Because I'm not celebrating it for that. But then my parents, when I was really young, they were never in church. So we did get the gifts. We got the Santa. And so the Christmas maintained itself. But when we were in church, then it became something. You had the candlelight stuff and whatever. And because I was so shaken with that in the first year of knowing Daniel, is that Christmas here, we do not observe it, period. And so the decorations will go up because it's a time to decorate and it's fun. I love Christmas for the idea of giving people something, but it needs to be handmade for me. I don't want to go to the store and participate in buying junk that will end up in a garage sale. And so we don't observe Christmas every year. We don't observe Christmas for what it's intended every year, like at all. But we only decorate once in a blue moon. So we did not decorate this past year. I don't think we did the year before either. I think we decorated 3 years ago. We might decorate this year, who knows? But it all depends on what that is. But the problem for somebody like me, because I have an online personality, is that as soon as somebody sees something in the background, maybe a Christmas tree or something religious like that, I end up getting jumped on by the public. And I tell Daniel, I intentionally, when we do decorate, we intentionally take a photograph of the house the day before Christmas, after the decorations are gone. So we decorate, but we take it down before Christmas actually happens. And Daniel absolutely hates that, like really a lot. And I'm like, I don't want to be accused of setting up for Christmas and participating with that because I'm not religious. But there's so many people that I know in my life that literally participate in Christmas, but haven't stepped foot in a church in years, but they still do it anyway. And in my last relationship with my last partner being Jehovah, being former, he got ostracized from that too, because he because of his lifestyle and got basically kicked out and shunned, is that I saw people running around at Christmas time trying to buy stuff. You see people panicky trying to find gifts. And it is almost like that whole idea of Whoville, of people that are panicking trying to get the perfect gift. And I think the whole purpose of Christmas is lost when that happens. So I like decorating. I think it's fun. I think it's cheerful. I think it's great for the middle of winter when there's not a lot of sunlight here in the north. I love it for that element, but I don't love it for the context that it puts me in a bad position being an online host. And I know what you're thinking. Well, you know, maybe that was just bad churches that we were in, but there was 2 right in a row. So how often do you gotta abuse yourself to put yourself into that environment? Virtually every death threat that I have received since being a YouTube host has quoting Bible verses and stuff. And so why would I want to be part of that? Because if that is going to be, you need to participate in church, or this is going to happen and you are this because of this Bible verse and this, I don't want to participate with something like that because I think it's abusive. Because I think you can live an authentic life and you can be kind and you can participate and help others without really being plugged into a religion. That's just my own feeling. If you're religious, great, that's good for you. But I don't think it's meant for everybody. As a child, my mom would say, well, you can hear God if you just quiet your mind. I couldn't hear nothing. I just, you know, it's just like, I just didn't understand. And I think one of the pivotal moments that kind of changed me was that I wanted to understand why the church was using stained glass windows. And so my mom said, go ask the pastor. So she drags me up to see the pastor. And I said, why are the stained windows? And he says, we do not want the outside people to see what is going on inside the church. So the windows are stained. And I shook my head like, oh, that's a great answer. But I left that conversation not thinking that at all. Is that when I had time to get home and think about it, I'm like, well, if we're doing such good and this is such a great environment and we're preaching to others that you need to be in, wouldn't you want somebody to see what's going on inside the building? And so that literally probably happened when I was 11 years old, and it really changed me. That kind of answer would have been, you know, you're in the mindset, you're starting to think for yourself, you're starting to realize that your parents may not be superheroes, and you're starting to come to realization that maybe something isn't off, but you can't get a good answer. So I'm not participating in Christmas or church because it's not authentic to who I am as a person. There are other people like me that are gay that do participate in church. All the power to them. I got invited by somebody about 15 years ago, and they said they're just doing something at the church, nothing church oriented. And so I went. I said, you know what, I'll go with you, sure. And I end up sitting through hymns and a thing, and I'm like, well, I thought we were doing this, and that person was so embarrassed. And for myself, I was so uncomfortable because I'm like, I'm not meant to be in this environment. And then I thought, well, okay, well, maybe it's just this church. So then I go to a potluck supper that is being advertised on the side of the road at another church, and I go in there and the heads swiggle, and I heard somebody says, why is he here? And I realized that you have to set your own boundaries on what you're willing to subject yourself to. And so as far as Christmas is concerned, I try not to get involved in anything Christian. I won't crochet a manger. I won't teach how to crochet a manger. I have never taught how to do a cross because I just don't think it's authentic to our channel. But I do love Christmas from the Santa point of view, the Saint Nicholas, the fairy tale, the fables of Saint Nicholas, and all of that stuff. I enjoy Christmas from that point of view. I enjoy the color, the lights. I enjoy the fellowship of Christmas. But I don't enjoy what comes with it, that it comes that extra guilt with that. So So that's why you don't ever really see anything religious on our channel or in my background or anything, because it's really not authentic to be you. And I think at the end of the day, if that kind of thing is important for you, that your host be a certain way, I know people literally that are on YouTube that project that image, but behind the scenes, they are not that person. And so I would rather have somebody like me where I'm kind of foul-mouthed and I have an off-putting sense of humor, or I wouldn't say it's off-putting, but it's sarcastic, it's rude, it's there. I'd rather have that because that's authentic versus somebody that's quoting to be something that they're not. And so people have to decide what works for you. I had a lady yesterday, I assume she's a lady, it was a female name, and it's like, she goes, I need you to change your ways on something. And I'm like, you just need to find a different host. Like, you can't expect the host to change to your need. And if the host is not doing something that you prefer them to do because their lifestyle is a problem for you, then it's a free choice. There's always somebody for somebody on YouTube for that. And I think that you just have to be authentic as much as you can. But it's very difficult living a public life to have expectations that are kind of unrealistic as well. So that's why you don't really see much of that in my background. Honestly, the religion destroyed my family as a kid. So people say, well, you know, you got to get over things and forgive. But at what point do you say, you know what, one time, okay, I get it. Twice, we get pushed out of a church, and then the family ends up, my parents divorced and the whole 9 yards because it's a conflict. I don't know how much a person can forgive with that when it basically is your whole life that you know of it that's been turned upside down because of it. So I think you have to do what's right for you, and that's it for now. That's it.